The doors of the grand chamber slammed shut behind me before I had even taken my seat, and I knew right away that today would not be like the other days. My name is Alira Vance, and I was the only human sitting at a table meant for 11 other species. The air in that chamber was thin and cold, built for lungs that were not mine, and every single delegate around that ring of dark stone was staring at me like I had wandered into the wrong meeting by mistake. "Sit down, outsider," said the voice from across the table. It belonged to Ambassador Kestrel Van, though that was not his real name, only the one his species allowed us to use, since our tongues could not shape their true words. His skin was the color of wet slate, and his eyes never blinked. "You are already late, and you already do not belong." I sat down anyway. My legs were shaking, but I did not let my hands shake, because hands are what people watch when they want to know if you are afraid. 6 months. 6 months I had come to this chamber, every single week, asking these people to let my planet join something called the Trade Circle, a group of star nations that controlled every safe route between the systems. Without that membership, no ship from Earth could travel more than a few light years without being stopped, searched, taxed, or simply turned away. Our colonies on the edge of known space were starving for supplies that never came, because we were not allowed to buy them. "Ambassador Van," I said, keeping my voice steady, "my planet has met every requirement your council asked of us. We have submitted proof of peaceful trade for 3 years running. We have broken no law of this circle." "You have no fleet," said a smaller voice, sharp and quick, belonging to a delegate named Oren Tesk, whose people looked something like tall birds wrapped in silver cloth. "A nation without a fleet is a nation without a voice. Why should the Circle listen to a species that could not defend a single system if it were attacked tomorrow?" The room laughed. Not all at once, not loudly, but enough that I felt it in my chest like a slow bruise. I had heard this laughter before. I had heard it every week for 6 months. "We do not wish for war," I said. "We wish for trade, for medicine, for seeds that will grow in soil that is not ours by birth. Is that too much to ask?" "It is too much to give," said Ambassador Van, "to a species with nothing to offer in return. You call yourselves partners, yet you arrive at our door with empty hands and expect us to fill them." I felt something cold settle in my stomach, because I understood, in that moment, that no argument I could make would change their minds. Words were not enough. They had never been enough, not for 6 months, not for 6 years before that, when the first human ship had limped into circle space, with a message of peace, and been sent home with nothing. And then, 3 days ago, the message had come. It had come from a small mining colony called Aldrin's Rest, on the far edge of what we called our territory, though the Circle refused to recognize it as ours at all. A group calling themselves the Skarn Raiders had attacked the colony without warning, burning half its solar collectors and taking 40 people as hostages before vanishing back into the dark. Aldrin's Rest had sent a call for help to the nearest Circle patrol station, less than 2 hours away. The patrol station had not answered. They said, later, that Aldrin's Rest was not Circle territory, and so it was not their concern. 40 people, taken. Because we had no fleet, no voice, no seat at a table that decided who was worth saving. I had not told the council about Aldrin's Rest yet. I had been saving it, the way you save a card you are not sure you should play. "Ambassador Van," I said, 3 days ago, one of our colonies was attacked. 40 of our people were taken. We asked the nearest Circle patrol for help and they refused, because our colony does not exist on your maps." The room went quiet. "That is unfortunate," said Van, though his voice held no real weight behind the word. "But it changes nothing. A species without power cannot demand that others come to its aid." "I am not asking you to come to our aid," I said. "I already went." Silence again, but a different kind, the kind that comes right before something breaks. 3 days ago, I said, the moment we learned Aldrin's Rest had been attacked, our people did not wait for permission. We did not wait for a treaty or a vote. We went, because that is what we do for each other. And we brought back all 40 of our people, alive, without asking any of you for a single thing. Oren Tesk tilted his head, feathers along his neck rising slightly. "Impossible." A rescue that far into contested space would require a fleet of considerable size. Your species has no such fleet on record. You are right, I said. We had no such fleet 6 months ago. But 6 months of being called an outsider teaches a species many things, Ambassador Tesk. One of them is patience. Another is that when nobody will build a door for you, you learn to build your own. I stood up from my chair, and every eye in that chamber followed me, because standing was not something delegates did during formal session, and everyone knew I had broken the rule the moment I did it. I walked to the great viewing window behind the council seats, the one that looked out over the orbital platform where all diplomatic vessels docked before entering the chamber. It had been empty that morning when I arrived. Empty, quiet, nothing but stars and the slow turning curve of the planet below. I placed my hand against the cold glass, and I did not turn around right away. I let them wonder. I let the silence stretch long enough that even Ambassador Van, who never seemed to feel anything at all, shifted in his seat. Then I turned. Beyond the glass, filling every meter of open space as far as the eye could follow, sat 10,000 ships. They came in every shape a shipyard could build in a hurry, some sleek and fast, built for scouting the dark corners of a system, others broad and heavy, built to carry cargo, or medicine, or people who needed somewhere safe to go. There were smaller craft too, thousands of them, moving in slow, careful patterns between the larger vessels, like a hive tending to itself. None of their weapons were active. None of their engines burned bright. They simply sat there, patient and enormous, filling the black with a silence of their own. That, I said, is what a species with nothing to offer built in 6 months, Ambassador Tesk. Not because we wanted a war. We have never wanted a war. My people spent centuries fighting each other before we ever looked up and saw the stars properly, and we know better than almost anyone at this table what war truly costs. We built this fleet because 40 of our people were taken, and no one in this room was willing to lift a hand to bring them home. Ambassador Van's slate-colored skin had gone paler, something I did not know was possible for his kind. This is a considerable show, Miss Vance. But numbers alone do not win wars. I agree completely, I said, which is why I am not here to threaten anyone with war. I am here to remind this council that a species does not need to be old, or wealthy, or already powerful, to matter. We built these ships with volunteers, Ambassador. Ordinary people, farmers who had never left their home system before, teachers, engineers who had spent their whole lives building schools, not warships, until 3 days ago, when they decided that building something to bring their neighbors home mattered more than anything else they had ever built. I let my hand fall from the glass and walked slowly back toward my seat, though I did not sit down yet. You called me an outsider the moment I walked into this room, I said, looking directly at Ambassador Van. You have called my whole species that for 6 months, in this chamber and in every private conversation, I was never meant to hear about afterward. You believe that because we arrived late to this table, because we did not have the history or the fleet or the wealth that the rest of you carried in, we did not deserve a seat at all. I turned slowly, meeting the eyes of every delegate in that circle, one at a time, letting each of them feel the weight of being looked at instead of looking away. But being an outsider does not mean being weak, I said. It only means arriving at the door after everyone else has already decided where all the chairs should go. We are asking, still, even now, for a seat at this table, not because we have proven we can hurt you, but because we have proven we will not stop trying to help each other, no matter what any of you decide today. Oren Tesk's feathers had settled flat against his neck, a posture I had learned, over 6 months, meant something close to careful thought. Miss Vance, he said, his sharp voice softer now, you say this fleet was built to rescue your people, not to threaten this council. That is correct, I said. Then why show it to us at all? It was a fair question, and I had known it was coming since the moment I decided, 3 days ago, that I would answer this way, instead of quietly, privately, the way diplomacy usually preferred. Because words alone were not enough for 6 months, I said. I came to this chamber every week and told you what my people needed, what we could offer, what kind of partners we intended to be. And every week, I was told the same thing, that we had nothing worth trading, and we had no power worth respecting. I am showing you this fleet not because I want you to fear it, Ambassador Tesk, but because I want you to finally believe that when we say we are capable of standing beside you, we mean it, and we have already proven it, quietly, without asking permission first. A long murmur moved around the table, low voices in half a dozen different tongues, translators humming quietly in the ear of every delegate as the room tried to absorb what had just been shown to them. Ambassador Van raised one gray hand, and the room slowly fell silent again. Miss Vance, this fleet, who commands it? A woman named Priya Anand, I said. She was a cargo pilot 3 years ago, running supply routes between our outer colonies. When Aldrin's Rest sent its call for help, she was the first to volunteer a ship and a crew. By the end of that first day, 400 more pilots had volunteered beside her. By the end of the week, we had more volunteers than ships to put them in, and so we built more ships. In 6 months, said Oren Tesk, still clearly struggling with the number. In 6 months, I said. Because when a people believe they are fighting for something worth saving, they do not need to be told twice. I finally returned to my seat, folding my hands calmly on the table in front of me, though my heart had not slowed down since I first stood up. I am not here today to ask the Circle to fear us, I said. I am here to ask you to finally see us. We do not want to replace anyone's place at this table. We only want a chair of our own, one that was not offered freely, but one we have earned through 6 months of patience and 3 days of proving exactly what kind of partner we intend to be. For a long moment, nobody spoke. The great window behind me still showed the quiet, waiting shape of 10,000 ships, engines dark, weapons silent, simply present, the way a promise is present even when nothing is being said aloud. Ambassador Van finally leaned back in his seat, and something in his face had changed, though I could not name exactly what. Miss Vance, he said slowly, you understand that a fleet of this size, sitting outside a diplomatic chamber, could easily be read as a threat by nations far more nervous than this one. I understand that completely, I said. Which is why every ship out there is running with its weapons fully powered down, verified by your own station's sensors the moment we arrived. We did not come here to threaten the Circle. We came here to remind it that the door it has kept shut against us for 6 months was never truly ours to knock on quietly. We built our own, and we are asking, one final time, if you would rather open yours instead. Ambassador Van was quiet for a long moment, and then he did something I had not expected. He laughed, softly, and there was no cruelty in it this time, only something close to tired respect. 6 months, he said. I called you an outsider, because I believed a species without power had no true stake in this Circle. I see now that I mistook patience for weakness, Miss Vance, and that is a mistake I do not intend to make twice. He turned to the rest of the council. I move that we bring the matter of Earth's provisional membership to an immediate vote. The vote came swiftly after that, delegate after delegate raising a hand, a wing, a length of silver cloth, whatever gesture their own people used to signal agreement. When the final count came in, it was unanimous. 11 votes, 11 species, and for the first time in 6 months, my planet had a seat at the table that had never once, until today, considered us worth the space. I did not celebrate right away. I sat quietly at the table, while the council moved on to the small formalities of what provisional membership would mean, what documents would need to be signed, what routes would open first for trade. My mind was still on Aldrin's Rest, on the 40 people we had brought home 3 days ago, tired and frightened but alive, because a cargo pilot named Priya Anand had refused to wait for permission to go and get them. After the session ended, Ambassador Van approached me quietly near the great window, the fleet still hanging silent beyond the glass. May I ask you something, Miss Vance, he said, away from the formal record? Of course. That fleet, he said, nodding toward the window. Was all of it real? 10,000 ships, fully crewed, in 6 months? I considered lying to him, just for a moment, the way diplomacy sometimes rewards a careful bend of the truth, but I found I did not want to. About half of it is fully crewed and ready, I said. The rest are drone hulls, built quickly, running old flight patterns to look whole from a distance. We did not have the numbers yet to fill every ship with a living crew, not in 6 months. Ambassador Van studied me for a long moment, and I braced myself for anger, for the accusation that I had tricked the entire council into a vote built on half a bluff. Instead, he simply nodded. And the half that is real, the crude half, how many of them had never flown into danger before 3 days ago? Almost all of them, I said quietly. Farmers, teachers, a man who repaired water systems for a living, a woman who taught children how to read. None of them had ever fought for anything larger than their own small corner of the sky before Aldrin's Rest called for help. And yet you succeeded, said Van. We succeeded, I said, because every single one of them believed that the people waiting on that colony mattered more than their own fear. That is not something a fleet's true size can measure, Ambassador. It never has been. He was quiet again, looking out at the ships, at the slow, patient shapes drifting in careful formation against the dark. I have sat on this council for 40 years, Miss Vance, he said finally. I have watched a dozen species come to this chamber asking for a seat, and I have watched most of them try to buy that seat with numbers, with wealth, with old alliances passed down through history. You are the first who tried to earn it, with nothing but patience, and the willingness to go get your own people back, without waiting for anyone's blessing to do it. Is that a compliment, Ambassador? I asked, allowing myself, finally, the smallest smile. It is an apology, he said. One I do not offer lightly, and one I do not expect you to accept easily, but it is the only one I have to give. I looked out at the fleet one more time, at the quiet shapes that had once been cargo pilots and teachers and water system repairmen, now standing patient guard over a chamber that had spent 6 months telling us we did not belong in it. I accept it, Ambassador, I said, not because the 6 months are forgotten, but because tomorrow matters more than they do. My people did not come here for an apology. We came here for a chance. You have given us that today, and that is enough for me to build on. He extended one gray hand, an old circle gesture of respect I had only ever seen delegates offer each other, never once offered to me in 6 months of sitting at that table. I took his hand, and behind us, 10,000 ships sat quietly in the dark, waiting for nothing more now than the long, slow work of turning a single day's proof into a lasting peace. They had called me an outsider the moment I walked through those doors. I had turned around and let them see exactly what patience and love for one's own people could quietly build in the space of 6 short months. It was never really about the ships at all. It was about proving, once and for all, that we had always belonged at that table, long before anyone was finally willing to look.